Do I have a problem with his female characters? Of course not. My favorite. I may die. So today we're going to be talking about a book that I just recently read. We're going to be talking about Steve Alten's The Loch. So, I have a lot to say about this story. I discovered Steve Alten when I was in my early 20s, back when he published Meg. Anyways, I fell in love with his style of writing. It's very fast-paced, it's unique, and he drew really awesome visuals. Immediately became a fan of his. I read Meg and I read The Trench. I enjoyed The Trench and I really enjoyed Meg, but I didn't really read any of his other stuff. I was at the thrift store and I ran across Loch by Steve Alten, and I'm like, oh, sweet. I haven't read any of his for a while, and it's about Loch Ness Monster, and I love Nessie. I have been a huge fan of Loch Ness Monster since I was a wee bairn. My Scottish is not good, so don't blame me on that. I have no Scottish accent. I apologize immediately for what I just did. Anyway, so I have loved the concept of Loch Ness since I was probably like 12. I'm walking by, I see a book about Loch Ness by Steve Alten, and I loved Meg. So I'm like, oh yes, we're totally doing this. Anyways, I picked it up, I took it home, and started reading it. The main character, okay, in a nutshell, just to summarize, like straight off the bat, Loch Ness, or Loch, the Loch, is a knockoff of Meg, characters-wise, and plot pretty similar-wise. It's basically Meg set in Scotland with really bad accents. I'm not joking. It really is. So that is the quick version, but we're going to go into it. So the book starts with a scientist, very much like the same character as Meg. His name is Zach. He is doing an expedition in the Sargasso Sea, and while he is there, he encounters unknown life forms which crash his sub and kill everyone except for him. He's a hero. He rescues someone's life, and then he ends up in the hospital recovering. While he's in the hospital, the first of the cliche females of the book, there are lots of cliche females in this book. Mr. Alten cannot write a female to save his life. They are all brainless bimbos. Seriously. He shows up. She is his fiance. She's this hot undergrad who's basically with him for prestige, and she's a completely brainless twit. And she breaks up with him while he is in the hospital bed in a very cliche, oh, I'm leaving you and I've been sleeping with someone else. And he is trapped in this bed recovering. And while he's there, his whole world starts falling apart, and he comes back out of the hospital. He has lost his job, he's lost his, support, his reputation, and it all falls to crap. He goes to Florida to go visit his mom and kind of recover of what's going on. And while he is there, he starts having night terrors. And he also runs into the second bimbo of the story, and he has a really, 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 really stupid pickup line. And she apparently, like all females in Mr. Alten's world, is impressed by physical appearance and pseudo-celebrity. So she is going to immediately have sex with him because apparently that's just what women do. So they are going to go into the water to have sex. Oh yes, I'm going to go have sex with you. Do I have a problem with his female characters? Of course not. So anyways, they're going into the water, and this is when you find out he has hydrophobia, that he is now terrified of the water because of what happened in the Sargasso Sea. So he is freaked out. And up until this point, and this is only a few chapters in, but up until this point, I was just kind of like cruising with the story, going, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, stupid bimbo women. But other than that, I've been totally fine to this point, accepting the cliches until he decides to walk into a therapist's office and in 1 hour get diagnosed, bullied, and traumatized. And this was a trigger for me. I have bipolar, and I have been in and out of therapy since I was 19 years old. So I know a little bit about therapy. I have seen many, many amazing therapists. I have seen some really bad therapists. But I have spent enough time that I know how therapy works. I mean, I'm pretty damn used to how therapy works. I've also studied psychology and taken lots of classes and read lots of books. So I know for a fact that you cannot walk in off the street and in 1 hour get fully diagnosed. Tell me, basically, in the words of the character in the book of the doctor, that he's fucked and he needs to get a different career because he's scaled the water. That's not how therapy works at all. They don't just go, oh, you're shit out of luck, you're traumatized, and that's it. No, and they wouldn't even say that in one session. They'd be like, in the first section, they're still getting your whole history. I have never had a therapist who made a snap decision that fast and then argues with him. I can obviously tell he has never sat in a therapist's office. He's never had therapy done. And if he has, his experience was ridiculous and terrible, and he should have gotten his money back, because that's not how a therapist is supposed to behave, because that's just not. So that, like I said, was a full trigger for me. I was like, what the hell? This is not realistic. Oh my God. So he, in 1 hour, is diagnosed and says he has hydrophobia. His career is fucked. He's never going to go into the water again. He just needs to basically give up, and that's it. That is pretty much the therapist. That's what he says to him, is you are screwed, and ta-da, that's it. You know, he never follows up with therapy. He never goes to another treatment. He just takes it face value. Your career is over by this one person, this one terrible therapist, and immediately throws his life down the drain. And instead of fighting or doing anything, he immediately becomes an alcoholic. He ends up in these cheap, grimy hotels where he is discovered by a half-brother who talks him immediately into going to Scotland to defend and represent his estranged father, who he hates. So I'm like, Mr. Alten, you know nothing about humans. Like, that's not how humans behave. You would not get someone to fall that quickly into depression and completely just fuck over their life after one therapy session with a therapist you don't agree. That's not how it works. I learned through this whole book that this character, Zach, just gives up without trying. At all. At all. Like, he immediately just goes, ew, it's too hard. He does that through the whole book. Anything that challenges him or is a struggle, he's like, I can't handle it. He's just so whiny. It's just, it's annoying. So, this character, you don't immediately go and try to defend your father in Scotland and fly all the way to Scotland when you fucking hate someone either. Most people, especially in the middle of a mental health crisis, are going to say, fuck all that, I'm not going. No, you can't make me. And they're not going to go flying off overnight to Scotland and everything. I'm like, maybe, Mr. Alten, if you didn't talk so much about stupid fucking history in the story, you could have developed your characters a little more. Just saying. So whiny ass Zach instantly forgives his father. No one forgives lose their estranged parent that easily at all. I'm like, was he on meth all the time? I don't know. Okay, so in the courtroom with his dad's full testimony to the court, and the reason he is innocent is because Loch Ness, he says, the monster showed up and killed his business partner who accidentally fell into the water. So that is his defense. The whole courtroom is like, what the hell? And goes into like this whole frenzy. And then Zach goes off and has the weekend and introduces third bimbo of the book, and she is the potential love interest, is this messed up woman who went to California and got in this horrible accident and disfigured herself, and while she was in the hospital her husband had an affair with her nurse and left her because apparently when you're in the hospital no one stands by you. But miraculously, after this disfiguring accident that loses her husband, she is miraculously gorgeous and fabulous and sexy. But as soon as she sees Zach, she immediately wants to have sex with him, which he can't do because it's on her boat, which is on the water, and he's scared of the water. So instead of going, dude, what's wrong? She immediately starts slandering him and harassing him because he won't sleep with her, and immediately aligns with his enemy when his enemy shows up because her feelings are hurt and, because he wouldn't sleep with her. I'm like, what is wrong with all the people in your world that this is how you write characters? Like, who are you surrounding yourself with? It was ridiculous. And she's just like this really shallow character, but apparently he's now madly in love with her after having spent an evening drinking with her and almost having sex with her, but not. But he's madly and wildly in love with her. I still don't see how that happened. And it's just the whole book was just a hot mess, okay? So the characters were shallow and terrible. The premise, the science part of what kind of creature Loch Ness could be and how they were in there and all of that, that was actually interesting and plausible and could have been great. But the conclusion at the end was kind of stupid. And what really pissed me off, okay, so the characters really pissed me off. Like at the very end, Brandy, the girl, whose father has been abusive and mean to her since she was a teenager and got pregnant out of wedlock. They have this 5-second conversation where the dad makes this speech to her, oh honey, I've been so wrong, and she immediately forgives him. So you're telling me that all it takes for these abusive fucking dads out there who have abused these children and this girl who now has a mental issue where she cuts herself, all they have to do is go, oh, I'm sorry, baby, I wasn't there for you. And the girls are immediately cured and life is happy ever after. And oh, I'm forgiving you. I have never met a woman who forgave anyone that quickly. Anyone. But apparently in this story, that is how it works. So, as far as plotting and pacing, it was extremely slow with long bouts of historical, data. You're just like, okay, get on with the story. They had this whole secret society subplot, which wasn't really necessary for the story. It just took away from it. But the worst was these long entries in a journal written by someone hundreds of years ago that really don't push the story forward at all. It's just these long, tedious segments that you're reading of this diary entry. You're just like, fuck, just kill me now. It wasn't bad enough for me to stop reading it. It was still pretty bad. And a lot of wasted plot points, and the villain was cliche, and the female was a one-dimensional character, no substance. She was willing to sleep with the villain just to get some publicity. There's nothing really redeeming about her. There was nothing really redeeming about any of the characters because the character of Zach I wanted to hit the whole time. I'm like, he was such a whiny little bitch. Like, oh, and his hydrophobia was like immediately cured. after encountering the monster, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't work either. I will say, mostly, mainly, I was pissed off because he killed off Loch Ness. You don't kill off Nessie, okay? The heart of the story is the characters, and none of these characters were redeemable. None of them had my heart at all. Like, I could have cared less what happened to any of the characters in this story. So, in conclusion, Mr. Alten is extremely good at research. He has great, wonderful ideas, very fast paced fiction. He sucks at writing characters, really sucks at writing women. But if you haven't read Meg, read it. Don't waste your time on the Loch. Read Meg and Trench, and you will enjoy it, especially if you are a shark fan and a cryptozoology fan and all of that. He paints really good visuals, and it's fun. So, there you have it. My rants about Steve Alten's The Loch. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.